Let's talk Tanya for the 5th of Tishrei. In yesterday's Tanya, we explained that the 10 attributes of the world of Atzilus, they unite with the infinite light of God in order to be able to create yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. And the question that we left off with yesterday was, something from nothing? Don't we know that einoid mulvade, there's nothing other than God? How can we talk about there being something other than God? So the whole concept of creation, really, we need to analyze and understand. What does it mean that there is a created something outside of God? And Alter Rebbe explains that we're talking about something that is only from the perspective and the perception of the created being. From God's perspective, everything that exists is only Him and that which flows from His creative energies. But from the perspective of the creation, it exists as an independent existence from God. And to understand this better, the Alter Rebbe contrasts the system of yesh mi'ayin, which is something from nothing, with another system which is called ila v'olol, which means cause and effect. When you have entity A and entity B, and entity B flows from the first entity, so there are two ways then this can happen. One of them is the system of ila v'olol, cause and effect, which is, by the way, the system which exists within all of creation. That is the system which we are familiar with, which is that when one thing comes from another, it flows directly from the other. So we see the progression. We see how one thing extends from the other, and therefore the effect always sees itself not as an independent entity, but as an extension of its cause. So for example, you have, let's say, seichel and midas. You have intellect and emotions. And as we discussed many times in Tanya, so emotions flows from the intellect. I understand something, and based on my understanding of it, that's how I feel about it. So the emotions don't see themselves as an independent entity. They always see themselves as flowing from and an extension of their source, which is the intellect. And by the way, that is the scientific method. Whenever we look at something, we assume that it has a cause. We try to analyze it, figure out what its cause is, because we can always look at the effect and understand the cause. Why? Because the effect is merely an extension of the cause. And then there's the other type of system, which is called yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. What does that mean? That means that there is this quantum leap. That which is created, that which emerges, does not see itself as an extension of its creator, because there's absolutely no similarity. And when it looks up, it sees nothing. I am something. It doesn't see itself in any which way as having a cause, because there doesn't seem to be, and actually maybe there isn't even any relationship between the created entity and its creator. And the large idea of this chapter is going to be that Bria Yesh Mi'ayin, creating something from nothing, that is something which again does not exist within the system of creation itself. That is something which only the infinite God Himself, only God Himself and His infinite light has the ability to create something, which that something sees itself as an independent entity. When it looks up at its source, it doesn't see its source, it doesn't see itself as an extension. Now, when something emerges from God and does sense itself as an extension of God, then that's not a created being. That is what is called godliness. So godliness is something which extends from God, but is bottled to God. It is nullified to God because it sees itself only as an extension. And then there's the created beings which see itself as independent entities. Where is the cutoff line between godliness and creation? That will be the topic of tomorrow's Tanya.